Like, I remember when the money wasn't there, forced me to say you 50, I got you. I gave my lawyer money and everything when I fight my case. I ain't got to get into all that, but bro made sure he made a way for me to be straight.
In this manner, Lil Durk stood by Jam until Jam turned on him. Recently, a fresh video of Jam begging for his life went viral, demonstrating how everything has changed. If there's one thing we know about Durk, it's that he doesn't put up with betrayal, so some are wondering whether this is the end of Jam. It's sincere and honest. First, let's examine what Jam is requesting. We must first examine the details that most people overlook before delving into the federal case drama and the reasons why many are clamoring for Jam's head. Even though Jam was formerly one of Lil Durk's most loyal warriors, he might have been the rat that killed the whole thing. Given what we know about Durk, he is now begging for his life because he seeks retribution. This isn't just any random person who fell for it. It was meant to be family, the kind of loyalty that the culture is built on. But sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who can do you the most harm. Before any of us ever knew who these cats were, Jam and Lil Durk had a bond that began in our early years. According to a 2023 interview with DJ Jerry Jam, CHI homies guys who grew up in the same neighborhoods and experienced the same struggles, poverty and violence that shape young men in these streets, talked about how Durk was like a brother to them, making music for block parties and neighborhood gatherings before he was even well known.
Like, I remember when the money wasn't there, forced me to say you 50, I got you.
At the age of 17, Jam was hardly legal in 2010, and living in Chicago wasn't a joke. Durk was just another young Chicagoan attempting to use his rapping abilities to become well known at the time. As neighbors looking out for each other and hoping to leave the neighborhood together, they had no thoughts of record deals, federal charges, or anything similar. Caught in a case of attempted murder at the age of 12 and was sentenced to 12 years. What matters is what happened afterward. We won't delve into the specifics of what transpired because that's between him and the streets. People usually move on, find new acquaintances, shift their priorities, and have shorter phone calls when their homeboy is incarcerated for more than 10 years. Letters ceased to arrive. When Durk Nahomi's career took off and he began making actual money and expanding his empire, he was different. Tony, did he never forget his first day in that cell. But we're talking about the kind of loyalty that legends are made of. Not simply about keeping him on the books or sending him some commissary money. That's just the way things are on the streets. The visits cease. Jam's 12-year bid was entirely unparalleled in the way Lil Durk supported him. Durk was taking a different approach by covering legal bills, and you are all aware of how expensive excellent lawyers can be, especially in cases as serious as attempted murder. Most rappers won't even help their own blood relations while they are in prison.
Gave my lawyer money and everything when I fight my case. I ain't got to get into all that, but bro made sure.
When Jam finally stepped out of the prison gates in February 2022, Durk had a full welcome home package ready for him, but the help was just the start. We are discussing a type of homecoming that most only the first. Durk buying him a house, not just any house where Jam could rest, rebuild his life, and have some stability after over 10 years in prison is what people dream of. The man then purchased a car from him. Even though Durk was able to live freely, run his business, and start to reconstruct his life, it wasn't enough. More than most people would receive, this man offered Jam a welcome home gift of $50,000 in cash. Durk regarded his allegiance so highly that when others saw him a year later, he just passed it over as if it were nothing.
He said, Jam, get out that jam, I'll give him 50, he ain't gotta ask again, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying, he ain't gotta ask, bro.
In King Von's song, Back Again, for example, Durk made a musical reference to this type of commitment. Rapping Jam, I handed him 50, so you don't need to ask again. Get out of that jam. This was so rare and genuine that it seemed sincere when he publicly applauded Durk's commitment. saying, "Bro played his part, and for social overplayed it." I love Bro for that. Durk was so happy with his ability to hold his homeboy down that he put it in a song for everyone to hear.
Bro, like, played this part for sure, like, overplayed it. I love Bro for that.
He gave Jam a respectable method to make money, establish a career, and keep out of jail. And in 2022 and 2023, Durk took him into the F family as an artist, featuring him on tracks like No Complaints and Focus. Now that the homie was back at home, he was getting back on his feet. He was a member of a great enterprise, and he had the kind of loyal friend that the beautiful ending to a story about genuine friendship. Persevering through the worst is something that most homeless people never understand. All that changed, though, on October 24, 2024, when Lil Durk was taken into custody in Florida on federal murder charges, not state or municipal beef charges, but federal charges which carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. In 2022, a plan targeting rapper Quando Rondo killed Rondo's cousin, Savia Lou Pab Robinson, and 5 other members were also engaged. Now, when the federal government steps in on a case like this, they don't just arrive with hypotheses and suspicions. They also bring documents, recordings, and evidence, the type of proof that may bury you, but what left everyone on the streets stunned was how in the hell they knew so. Lots of information regarding FF's internal activities. After Durk was arrested, everyone's eyes were on Jam, and there were reports that he had been assisting the authorities for years, supposedly wearing a wire to collect evidence against Durk and others. The rumors started then, and people started asking who had been recording talks, who had been wearing wires, who had been talking, and who had been collaborating. Leading figures in the hip-hop business, including DJ Academics, Wack 100, and Chicago rapper King U Law, started accusing Jam of being responsible for these grave charges, which weren't merely the work of lone internet trolls. These individuals are not careless in their charges. They have sources, connections, and information that the public does not know.
You know, we learned a lot when all this came out, man. You know, there's been a lot of allegations, you know, about people snitching. You know, so the main person they're talking about snitching is OTF Jam.
On October 30th, 2024, video footage went viral, purportedly showing Jam acting very apprehensive around Durk. This was the most damaging proof. After being captured with a new gun charge, Jam flipped, according to Wack 100. While Academics said he had been wearing a wire since his 2022 release, Jam was thought to have made a pact with the devil to avoid facing more jail time after he got caught up again soon after his release. Social media users were analyzing his body language and making scathing comments, assuming that he was wearing recording equipment and saying things like, "Damn, they must not be able to read body language, because he's moving hella weird." This footage, which showed a man who was visibly uncomfortable and hiding something, led many people to believe that it was the smoking gun. Instead of the loyal buddy he was meant to be, they saw someone who may have been documenting every encounter, conversation, and moment of trust for the federal government. A U.S. District Court in Los Angeles filed an indictment indicating that an F member had been functioning as a confidential informant, which appears to corroborate the notion in the court records as well. Even if Jam wasn't named by name, these federal lawsuits, as everyone knows, use initials and code names to protect their sources until the trial, at least. The personal betrayal made this claimed betrayal so terrible, in addition to the legal repercussions, was not merely any acquaintance or man from the organization's outskirts. It was purportedly family, the cat that Durk had welcomed into his inner circle, encouraged, and trusted. Every exchange Jam had with Durk was a betrayal. If the charges were true, how cold must it have been to be imprisoned in your home for 12 years? It's possible that every moment they spent together and every piece of information he was given access to as a trusted member is being recorded and given to federal authorities after his release, in ways that most people never experience. Youngster binds you down. He brings you home like a blood brother, and you repay him by helping the federal authorities gather evidence against him in the streets. The kind of betrayal that people will never be able to forgive or forget caused social media to go crazy as people examined every piece of information, every rumor, and every theory regarding what truly transpired. The hip-hop community's reaction was exactly what you would expect in a society where snitching is considered more serious than murder, and working with the police can result in permanent blacklisting or worse. The majority of people had already concluded that Jam was a rat, and rats are not forgiven in this culture. But some people defended him by saying that there wasn't enough evidence. It was disturbing evidence that started to come to light, and the street reactions were even stranger. So let me explain how deep this rabbit hole goes. First, let's talk about the federal government's approach to this matter, since the reason individuals were so sure they had someone on the inside providing them with information becomes clear when you begin to comprehend their methodology. Lil Durk was the target of a federal case that involved a complete criminal enterprise that employed violence to conduct business, not just one incident. The specifics of the purported incident were clarified. Town: we're insane. The FBI says that on August 19, 2022, Quando Rondo was followed and monitored across Los Angeles by 5 guys who were allegedly connected to F. As if they were seeking him. At least 18 rounds, including shots from a fully automatic rifle, were fired when they apprehended him at a petrol station after following his black Cadillac Escalade with 2 other vehicles. Rondo was unscathed during the murder of his relative. Observe what had everyone was curious as to how the feds were so aware of the planning, coordination, and consequences. A number of industry insiders claimed that they had a snitch in the crew, which is why they had such specific knowledge about what was allegedly a clandestine operation. There's a guy named F Jam that was wired a very ironic name. Jam got him in, said Whack 100, speaking candidly about what he thought was the real situation. When Whack 100 begins talking about federal cases and snitches, you had better listen carefully because he has been around long enough to know how these things work. Wacko said in the interview that he provided him $50,000, brought him cars, and kept it real for 12 years. He said that he had no criminal records, had never been a rat, and had never been implicated in a gun case. But ultimately, he turned back the clock that Whack had previously outlined. Very suspiciously laid out. According to him, Jam wore a wire continuously for 2 years from his release from prison in 2022 to Durk's arrest in 2024. He had been wearing a wire for the years 22 to 24 before being released in 2022, the same year as the Quando event. He immediately got involved in the incident, of course. Even though he might have been keeping records for the federal government. The welcome home party paid $50,000 in cash to buy him houses and cars, integrating him into the family. Surreptitious recording devices might have tarnished every encounter, every conversation, every moment of genuine brotherhood. The alleged aid from Jam was driven by sheer self-preservation. Jam found a new weapons case after being released, according to Whack 100, which is why he decided to flip instead of spending additional time behind bars. The details of this new legal matter have mostly remained secret, although, according to documents, Jam was taken into custody in May 2023 on a warrant connected to his previous case. Nevertheless, cats who have served their time have a tendency to do all in their power to avoid returning. 12 years in jail is a long time, and after you've been free for a while, the prospect of returning to a cell can make you do things you never would have otherwise. King Yala, acquainted with the sidewalks of when it came to analyzing some of the psychology that might have contributed to Jam's poor choice. Chicago was superior.
OTF didn't help when OTF Jam baby mama was murdered while he was locked up. And I am thinking the worst about that situation.
The story took on a whole new level as a result. leaving everyone in a state of wonder. It was even rumored that Durk had ordered the murder of Jam's baby mother. When Durk found out that Jam was helping a 10-year-old, he was charged with killing Octavia Redmond. Was shot and killed on July 19, 2024. No hard evidence links Durk, or F, to the crime. But the timing sparked speculation that Jam's baby mama had been in contact. Jam reportedly contacted Durk for legal support after finding out about his new lawsuit. But if that's true, that could be when Jam started to feel king, as though F weren't really family. Even the closest of friends might turn into enemies under these conditions, according to YELLA.
I done did my last bid 4 years, but they ain't do shit. So certain, I felt the type of way when I knew you had money. Not meaning that I want to do some snake to you like that, but in my head, maybe, not no snitch, but I might want to do something.
That perspective highlights how complicated these street relationships can be. Even when someone shows you love and commitment, if you start to feel like they're not there for you when you need them most, anger can build up, and in Jam's instance, it might have made him vulnerable to federal pressure. Yet, prosecutors believe that recordings from their informant were essential in building the case against Durk, and that the evidence of Jam's alleged assistance went far beyond conjecture and speculation. Even stranger was the appearance of a song allegedly recorded by Jam that contained lyrics that seemed to allude to Durk and violence, while several blogs stated that the song was basically an incriminating diss track. No one was able to verify if the claims were true. The claimed lyrics contained statements such as "Smirk is the voice you heard. What he said had some bullets behind it. We aren't going to tussle and only be rapping to kill me. A rapper so foreign will have something to put in their mouth." Whether this song was real evidence or just misconstrued, social media users went crazy over these lyrics, taking them as proof that Jam was disloyal. Posts said that Jam allegedly released a song snitching on Chicago rapper Lil Durk and other suspects involved in the King Von Get Back hit. The situation got so heated that someone even posted fake news on social media, claiming that Jam had been shot and killed. The rumor was disproved, but it showed the level of ire and scrutiny Jam was under. The Hood even turned the incident into memes and jokes. For example, social media users made fun of Jam with comments like, "Bro, snitched on Dirt for a Big Mac and fries," in a video that allegedly showed him eating McDonald's during a federal interrogation, demonstrating how quickly people believed and spread news about his death. While that may seem insignificant, the hip-hop community uses humor and cultural commentary to process these kinds of betrayals, which further isolates people who violating the code. In the meantime, Jam's silence was making things worse for months. After Durk's arrest, he didn't confirm or deny what people were saying about him, and his absence from social media and public appearances only served to fuel speculation about his whereabouts and his actual involvement in the case. When the discovery is made, you'll see that I don't know how the feds got onto us or constructed their case, so I'm going to let the paperwork come out because it will tell it all. When F Jam finally came forward on Instagram stories in December, he denied that he had lied to Durk and claimed that the truth would be revealed when the legal documents were made public. But Jam didn't stop there. He went into full offensive mode and started blaming others, including the "This is the same cat that has been talking about gang _ for 2 years." And now he's basically saying Durk brought his legal troubles on himself. That's not the kind of response you expect from someone who's supposed to be loyal to their family. Really, that statement had people reeling. Herc should not have gone to the concerned crime scene if he didn't want to get incriminated. In essence, he was burning bridges with everyone, acting as though they felt betrayed and abandoned by the entire organization. And the most important part of Jam's statement was his assurance that, when the legal discovery documents were made public, they would prove his innocence and expose whoever provided the feds with their information. This was a bold claim that put everything on a timeline. Either those documents would vindicate him, or they would bury him even deeper in the streets. Jam's statement sparked a wide range of reactions, with some viewing it as a desperate attempt by a guilty man to shift blame and create reasonable doubt, while others began to wonder if perhaps the story was more complicated than it first appeared. In May 2025, the prosecution began to show cracks when they removed references to Durk's song lyrics from a superseding indictment. Everyone was waiting for those promised documents to drop, while some intriguing developments in Durk's legal case began to support some of Jam's claims. Durk's legal team had been arguing that prosecutors had essentially lied to the grand jury by using lyrics from Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy as evidence, even though the track had actually been recorded 7 months prior to the incident. This was significant because it showed that the prosecution's case might not be as strong as they initially claimed. If they were willing to cut out evidence that had been central to their original presentation, it raised serious questions about what other parts of their case might be built on shaky ground. He described the prosecution's use of Durk's lyrics in court cases as dangerously sloppy and said that prosecutors were treating artistic expression like literal confessions without doing proper fact-checking. The most interesting development came from legal observers who saw significant changes in the prosecution's presentation of their case in the superseding indictment they filed. The original indictment's paragraph 9, which stated that defendant Wilson would pay the bounty or monetary reward and/or cause payment to be made for the killing of Senior or Lil Pob on behalf of co-conspirators at the direction of defendant Banks, has been removed from the initial allegations. This is significant because it implied that whatever the murder-for-hire payment structure was, it was removed. We must look at previous instances where rappers' crews allegedly turned against them in order to understand why this whole incident is so significant in hip-hop culture. The federal government's initial claim that Durk paid for the hit may not have been as trustworthy as they first thought. This type of betrayal has happened before, and the outcomes are always disastrous. The most famous example was 6ix9ine's involvement with the 9 Trey Gangster Bloods, where he completely changed his mind after being charged with RICO and cooperated with the prosecution by testifying against his former friends. Gunna Nas case in the YSL RICO case, which showed how even legal actions can be interpreted by the culture as snitching, followed. In December 2022, when Gunna accepted an offer plea, he had to confirm in court that YSL is a gang and a music label. And you have first-hand knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the code. 6. On 9 innings cooperation was public and explicit, making him a living example of what happens when you break the code.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
Even though Gunna insisted he wasn't working with them, prominent rappers Lil Durk, Lil Baby, Meek Mill, and Paulo G unfollowed him on social media and in the hip-hop community. Basically saw him as a snitch, seriously harmed his career, and is currently trying to salvage his social standing. But the F Jam case was different from both of these cases. Unlike the 6ix9ines, there was no clear collaboration or public testimony that anybody could link to, unlike Gunna, who made admissions in court as part of a formal plea deal. Conjecture and circumstantial evidence were the main sources of the charges made against Jam. In spite of the absence of concrete proof, the streets nonetheless passed judgment on him, since society is already suspicious of anyone who may help. Law enforcement, many people took the claims against Jam as true when they first surfaced. Durk's trial was delayed until October 2025, adding to the complexity. There were 20,000 witnesses and over 230 gigabytes of digital data. Pages of reports. This suggested that the discovery documents that Jam said would clear his name might not be released for months or even years while all of this legal turmoil was going on. due to the snitching allegations and the baby mom's death. His whereabouts were unclear, and rumors circulated that he was staying away from Chicago for his own safety. Target from multiple angles, the broader implications of this case go well beyond the individuals involved. It highlights the vulnerable position that participants of street-oriented hip-hop culture are in. They found themselves in a predicament where they had to decide between loyalty and survival. And Yella succinctly explained the psychology behind these situations.
And don't got images. My OTF try to, you see, you know the GD, like, we don't give I ain't got no filter. You do something, I'm calling you out for it. That's why what it is. That's how we was raised anyway. Yep. Try to keep they together so they won't look bad.
The drive to maintain reputations and street credibility can often conflict with the reality of serving decades in federal prison. As this quote illustrates, hip-hop's image of undying loyalty doesn't always match the challenging decisions that residents must make when the federal government steps in. Charleston White, who is known for voicing his opinions, provided his customary, unedited analysis of the matter.
Nobody laughing at Durk like they were laughing at me when I went to jail. Lord, Amber. So ain't nobody laughing at Durk. Now it ain't funny. Now your favorite rapper go to jail and look like he got a no bond like me.
There are still many significant questions, such as whether the discovery materials Jam promised would actually prove his innocence or unearth new, extremely damaging evidence. Will the federal government's resources be enough to refute the prosecution's case? Or will Durk's legal team be able to finally, what will this whole